Well, this is a church not far south of the Islamic Studies Centre, still on Marston Road, but close to where it joins the road that goes up Headington Hill. And I've been told that this is open today as part of the Oxford Preservation Trust scheme, the Oxford Open Doors thing. So I'll go and have a quick look inside. That's the church from Marston Road. And that is very much a picture postcard view. And with a drive and railings like this, I could imagine it set in the grounds of some grand manor, maybe Wadston Manor, for example. Now, before I go into the church, I'm just going to mention one thing. There's a meadow under Magdalen Bridge, Angel and Greyhound Meadow. And you can see it from here, and you can see here from it. And there used to be a crossing, some sort of bridge, I suppose, by which people could walk down here and into the meadow. I'm not sure exactly where it was, but presumably it went just behind those trees, and then the meadow was on the other side. And if you wanted to get from Marston Road to Magdalen Bridge without having to work round St Clements, it was a useful shortcut. And then one of the colleges, Magdalen I think, closed it in 1975. I know this because I saw it mentioned in an old copy of Charwell, which was, and as far as I know still is, a student newspaper. Locals complained about this, but the college was adamant that they wouldn't allow the crossing to remain open. It's an example of something I talked about in a very early video. I referenced a blog post by Danny Dorling, who is a social geographer at Oxford, and he remarks about all the routes that the university has closed in the mid-20th century, and how before the coming of the car it would have been much harder for them to do that because so many people depended on them. But now you can get away with it. People just have to suck it up, as the Americans say rather rudely. So I think that's a great shame. Now, I haven't been to this church before, and I know very little about it other than what I see on the church notices that appear on the outside of the grounds. Well, that's a very good precaution, especially as I stepped in one of the floor-level fountains at the Islamic Studies Centre. My feet may not be covered with lime, but one of them is wet. Okay, I'm now inside the porch looking out, and I've been reading the short history that they gave me inside the church, and it's quite informative about social conditions in this part of Oxford. So it seems that this church dates from the 1820s, but replaces a much older one which was demolished in 1829. The original one stood at what is now the plain roundabout, which you see from Magdalen Bridge, sited where the roads from London and Henley crossed the Cherwell. And it served a small suburban community of Brughaset, bridge settlement that surrounded it, as well as the largely rural area, they say, that eventually became East Oxford. And the first written record is from 1122, the first written record known, when the church was a royal chapel given to St. Friedwide's Priory by Henry I. But they think it was probably founded before then. It was rebuilt in 1323, at which time it was referred to as the Church of St. Clement beyond Petty Pont. Petty Pont was what Magdalen Bridge was known as at the time, Little Bridge presumably. In the English Civil War, during the Siege of Oxford, 1644 to 1646, St. Clements was apparently on the front line between the royalist forces in the city and the parliamentary guns on Headington Hill. The leaflet says that it's reported that by the end of the war, only the church and the Black Horse Inn were left standing. I don't know a Black Horse Inn. Of course, it may have been demolished or renamed long before I got here. There used to be a pub called the Plasterers' Arms, and hang on, thinking, is there a Black Horse by the Jewellers? Yes, I think there is. I think the pub on the south side of St Clements, by a jeweller's, roughly opposite an Indian takeaway. I think that is, or used to be, called the Black Horse. So only that and the church were left standing, apparently. But St Clements quickly recovered, and by the late 17th century, the late 1600s, had become a thriving commercial area. The parish remained outside the city of Oxford until 1836, which, quote, made it an attractive choice for booksellers, tailors, and other tradespeople seeking freedom from the city's high rates and restrictive trading regulations. But although these businesses may have been thriving, there was a load of poverty as well. Many parishioners depended on the university for work, and of course that work dropped off or disappeared outside term time. I would think of waiters, chefs maybe making the dinners in hall, staff who looked after student laundry and student cleaning and bedding, gardeners maybe. Actually, gardeners probably were needed most of the year round, and so on. And also something that I referred to in my Castle Mill stream video that I did yesterday. I talked about the difference between the posh houses up on Harberton Mead and Jack Straw's Lane and so on, which were high up and immune from flooding, and the much poorer ones that were all people could afford in areas like St Thomas's, which risked flooding whenever it got really wet. And as this leaflet says, environmental factors, a damp, low-lying area and an unsafe water supply took their toll on public health. 74 parishioners died in the 1832 cholera outbreak, 36 of them in a single street. I do wonder now, thinking about flooding, how much of that might have been due to contamination of drinking water. I think that's also about the same time that Christchurch had trouble with cholera and culverted over the Trillmill stream, which used to run open through Christchurch grounds. I think they saw it as a possible source of cholera and wanted to roof it over to prevent that. Quote, for some, poverty and ill health were also linked to the increasing number of inns and public houses in the area. One 19th century rector accused the city magistrates of dumping beer licences in St Clements, which led the church to become increasingly involved in social action as part of its Christian mission. And then there's a section called Growth and Change. In the early 1800s, slum clearances in Oxford saw St Clements expand rapidly, with over 300 new houses being built between 1821 and 1824. The old church was small, only able to seat 250 people, and services were very much interrupted and annoyed by the continued noise of carriages passing to and fro. So a new church was planned. And Cardinal Newman became curate in 1824. And although he was only at St Clements for 2 years, he apparently had an enormous impact here. Visited every home, started a Sunday school, and preached regularly to a packed church, which I can believe, raised lots of funds too, and enabled the current church to be constructed. The architect was the same guy who designed the University Press buildings in Walton Street, Daniel Robertson. And this is something that didn't come to fruition, perhaps sadly. The site was chosen in the expectation that the parish would expand along Marston Road, and the original plan would have placed the church building at the corner of an elegant Georgian square. Didn't happen. Churchyard was originally limited to a small area around the church building. The big main area that we see now was donated by the Morell family in 1920, partly to provide a setting for a new war memorial. The Morell family, known also for Morell Avenue being named after them, and of course for the brewery. And that's more or less it. The leaflet finishes by talking about the 21st century and says that half the population of St Clements is now made up of students, due to both Brookes University and Oxford University expanding their accommodation. And St Clements has become more international and more religiously diverse, acquiring both a mosque and an architecturally striking Islamic Studies Centre, which is where I came in. Okay, so I'm now going to look at the east window at the front of the church. According to the leaflet, this shows 10 scenes from the life of Christ. It's made of painted glass, and it's the work of Isaac Hugh Russell, a, quote, poor but talented artist who lived and worked in Caroline Street in St Clements. And then the windows, the 4 windows on the geographical west of the church, depict scenes on the theme of faith. They were made by A. and W.H. O'Connor for St Martin's Church, Carfax in 1865. And if you've never seen them there, that's because they were moved to St Clements in 1896 when St Martin's was demolished. So I'll have a look at the scenes from the life of Christ first at the front of the church, and then move to the windows on the theme of faith. Okay, well, I wasn't able to get close enough there to see everything that I wanted. I could only get at 3 of the faith-themed windows, which I'm pretty sure were in faith obey, in faith endure, and in faith pray. And I couldn't make out all of the scenes from the life of Christ. And then there was another window that I videoed to the left of it, which is in loving memory of one of the Morel family, 1900, I think. So, it's a very splendid church. And once again, thanks to the Oxford Preservation Trust for allowing us to see it. And thanks to the church for writing up the little social history that accompanies it. Now, if somebody would only do something about that crossing so that we could get back to going from here through the Angel and Greyhound to Magdalen Bridge, I'd be satisfied. I have to say, this is making me feel curiously nostalgic. It has a striking similarity to grounds in a village that I once knew, and I can't shake off the feeling that it ought to be part of somewhere much bigger. As I say, perhaps the grounds of one of the big stately houses. Okay, well, that's St Clements Church, and thanks again to the Oxford Preservation Trust. See you next time.